like we usually have. So you could have something like this with demand for insurance and supply of insurance. I'm sorry, demand here and supply there. Supply, price here, and quantity. So we could have a private market like we have for car insurance. We could have that in health, and we do have that in health, but there are some problems that are special to health, but it could also exist in other markets. Two of these problems are called moral hazard and adverse selection. So let's discuss those problems. First of all, moral hazard. Let's assume that in a private market, the probability of becoming sick for the whole population, let's say that's 0.1 in a year. And if you become sick, you have to so the probability of becoming sick is 0.1, and if you become sick, you're going to require treatment that's going to cost $1,000. And in this case, the insurance company could think, well, if I sell insurance for $100 each to 1,000 people, or 2,000 people, or 3,000 people, or a little bit more than $100, I'm going to make money. We're assuming away administration costs here. So the price would probably be around a little bit more than $100. The problem is that this will not work, because as soon as they have insurance, and that's what moral hazard says, two things will happen. First of all, they might take more risks, so higher risks. You become less careful because you have insurance. You don't have to pay yourself anymore. Higher risk. Start jumping from parachutes even more. Or you become less careful with matches during the house, so the house will burn down. That will increase the probability of becoming sick. So if you started thinking it was 0.1 and you offered the price of 100, you will go bankrupt, because now people have higher risk. The second thing that will happen is, as soon as they become sick, they might start using even more resources or high quality services than they plan to use otherwise if they had to pay themselves. And this means that the cost will no longer be 1,000. That's what they would pay or would spend themselves. But now they will try to since they don't have to pay anymore, they will go for more quality or more volume. They'll use more services, higher services. That actually applies not only to the individual, but it may apply to the hospital, who may provide more services because they can earn more money that way. So both these things imply that an insurance company that used to look at a population and thinking, oh, the risk is 0.1, and if they actually get injured, right now they're paying $1,000, so I could offer an insurance of a little bit more than 100, and I'll go with a small profit. No, the probability will increase, and the volume and the cost will increase. So they cannot do that. Well, so what, you might say? Well, this implies that the price will increase above $100. This is kind of a market failure, because people would like to say, oh no, give me this insurance for 100. I promise not to take more risks. But you can't do that. It's impossible to credibly promise that. And so the market will fail. Some people will say, people who actually are low risk will say, no, it's not worth it anymore. I'm not going to buy this insurance then. It's kind of the same thing with adverse selection. So this was moral hazard. Now, adverse selection is if the person it's kind of the same thing with adverse selection, but this time it's so adverse selection. But this time, the change in risk is not after you get insurance. It's the fact that you attract the wrong kind of customers. So again, if the probability of something happening is 0.1 in a population, well, and you offer the price of 100, well, let's assume that there are two kinds of people in this population: high risk and low risk people. High risk. And the people with high risk, they have a probability of 0.2 of becoming sick or crashing or something, 0.2, and the probability for the people who have low risk is 0.1, for example. And let's say that half of the population is high risk and half the population is low risk. So the average would be 0.15 in this population. And again, you do the calculation. If you work in an insurance company, you think, okay, if half the population is high and half the population is low, I could offer an insurance of, say, 150 or a little bit more. No, again, no, because you will attract the high-risk customers. If you offer the price of 150, the low-risk customers will say, no, it's not worth it for me. Or some of them will say that because I have a low risk, so why should I pay 150? So you tend to attract the high-risk customers, which means that you will have to pay out, or you have to base your calculations on a probability of close to 0.2, meaning you should charge at least 200. But this creates a market failure. But now because now the people with low risk will not have an insurance offer anymore. Why not? Well, you can't say, as an insurance company, you can't say, oh, I'm only going to try to find the low risk people. Well, as long as there's asymmetric information, meaning you can't distinguish between people with high risk and low risk, there is no way you can do that. So you'll attract the bad customers, and the market for the people with low risk will fail. And that's what we call adverse selection, and it's a problem in the insurance market. Okay, so far we have established that people want insurance, but there are some problems with the free market. So for example, people with low risk, they will not get insurance because there's no insurance company that can offer the price that makes it profitable for them. To what extent is this a problem empirically? Well, if you look, for example, at the RAND health insurance study, they show that if people get something for free, for example, free visits to the physicians, they increase their use of those resources by 30%. So that means there is some kind of moral hazard in the sense that as soon as you get it for free, you will use more of it. 30%. The use of those resources will not reflect the true cost of those resources because it's free and you use it more than they should have had then. Actually, when you say should have had, that's making a jump. They do use the resources more. Maybe they didn't use them optimally before, but that's a different question then. They do use it more. This is kind of an old study, but the same phenomenon was observed in a more recent study in the Oregon Health Experiment. And some people got insurance and they use more resources again. This time it depends on what you measure, but this time it was about 40% higher cost, for example. So, well, people are price sensitive. People do change their behavior when they have insurance. But we do want to be careful about saying that this necessarily is a bad thing. Maybe they needed those resources, or maybe they needed the visits. So we have to connect it to health again. And that's a different lecture. It's also possible to try to rescue the private insurance market by introducing or allowing different mechanisms. For example, you can introduce co-payments. You can have deductibles. You can have, or you can allow private insurance companies to collect information. So they know more about the risk of the customers. Eventually, of course, you run into ethical problems there. To what extent should they be allowed to have DNA information, for example? Isn't that the kind of thing you want to be able to insure against? But if they know exactly who's going to be sick, then that kind of defeats the purpose of the insurance market to some extent. But all of these things are possible and will reduce the problem of moral hazard and adverse selection. And that's the health insurance market and some of the problems in 15 minutes. Thanks.